This is not a lore video. There are plenty of channels that will tell you who wore the One Ring, when they wore it, and how it moved from hand to hand. But that is only the surface of the story. What matters is something darker. What matters is how the ring works. Because the strangest thing about the One Ring is not that it corrupts. You've heard that 1,000 times. The truly terrifying thing is that it does not corrupt everyone the same way. It studies. It finds the one desire you are already most willing to mistake for truth. And maybe the clearest proof of that begins at the moment Sauron loses it. For 7 years, the last alliance lays siege to Barad-dûr. 7 years of war, fire, exhaustion, and at the end, Sauron himself comes forth. He kills Gil-galad, he kills Elendil, Narsil breaks beneath him. Then Isildur takes the broken hilt of his father's sword and cuts the One Ring from Sauron's hand. It looks like the end, evil defeated, a new age begins. But in truth, that moment is when the ring begins its real journey, not through kingdoms, through souls. It will pass from hand to hand, not to serve those who carry it, but to test them, read them, feed on them, and, if it can, use them to return. Before we follow that path, we need to understand what kind of thing the One Ring actually is. Because the One Ring is not merely dangerous, it is designed danger.
Act 1. The Trap.
Sauron did not want mere destruction. Destruction is easy. Any brute can burn a city. Any army can pile up corpses. What Sauron wanted was something far more ambitious and far more terrible. He wanted order. A world arranged under one will. A world where other powers did not simply fear him, but ultimately moved within the system he had built for them. And that meant force alone would never be enough. To dominate the world by violence is difficult. To make the world accept domination as structure, necessity, even improvement, that is true mastery. So Sauron did not come first as a conqueror. He came as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts. He came to the elves not with chains, but with knowledge, not with threats, but with an offer. You want to preserve your realms. You want to deepen your art. You want to hold beauty against time. I can help. That is the first great lesson of the ring. The highest forms of evil do not begin with open brutality. They begin with seduction through improvement. And the elves listened. Together, the rings of power were made. The 3 for the elves, the 7 for the dwarves, the 9 for mortal men. Beautiful things, powerful things, but they were never merely treasures. They were parts of a system, a hierarchy, a design. Then, in secret, in the fires of Orodruin, Sauron forged the One. He did not simply make a powerful object. He poured into it a portion of his own power, his own will, his own need to dominate. That is why the ring never feels passive. It is not a sword hanging on a wall. It carries direction, it carries appetite, it carries purpose. The One Ring has a will of its own, not a soul, not a free intelligence in the human sense, but something more than inert magic, a drive, a logic, a hunger. And its hunger is never abstract. The ring does not tempt everyone with power in the same form. It tempts each person with the version of power they are already prepared to love. That is why it almost never needs the same lie twice.
Act 2. The Laboratory of Souls.
So let us watch it work. Let us watch how one intelligent instrument of domination moves through radically different people and finds in each of them a different entrance.
Isildur, the justified exception.
For Sauron, the ring was extension. For Isildur, it begins as something more subtle, justification. He has lost his father. He has fought in the greatest war of his age. He stands over the ruin of the enemy who shattered his house. And the ring does not speak to him in the language of evil. It speaks in the language of exception. Surely this one thing is yours. Surely after all this loss, this one claim is just. Surely this is not corruption. Surely this is reward. That is how the ring enters its first human bearer after Sauron, not through monstrous ambition, through a morally defended exception. And that is one of its most dangerous methods, because the lies most likely to ruin us are rarely the ones that sound evil. They are the ones that sound deserved.
Sméagol, the sudden seizure.
Centuries pass. The ring lies hidden in the riverbed. Then Diagol finds it, and Sméagol sees it. This time, the ring wastes no time at all. Sometimes it corrupts slowly. Sometimes it detonates. A desire flashes into violence almost instantly. A friend becomes an obstacle. A birthday becomes an excuse. A murder becomes the first irreversible act in a new life. That speed matters, because it shows that the ring does not always need to build greed from scratch. Sometimes all it needs is to awaken what is already waiting for permission.
Gollum, the parasitic self.
And with Gollum, the ring reveals one of its most horrifying powers. It does not merely provoke evil acts, it reorganizes identity. Sméagol does not just become more possessive, he becomes a self built around possession. His world narrows, his language narrows, his memory narrows. The sun itself becomes unbearable. Everything outside the ring begins to wither in significance until almost nothing remains except hunger, fear, and attachment. My precious is not just a phrase of affection. It is the sound of a person whose inner world has collapsed into a single object. That is what makes Gollum so terrible. The ring does not merely teach him to desire, it teaches him to call possession intimacy. And once that happens, almost every human category begins to break down. Friendship, kinship, home, even the self.
Bilbo, the gentle seduction.
Then the ring reaches Bilbo, and something important changes. Because with Bilbo, it is not immediately horrific. It is useful, convenient, private, even charming. Bilbo does not find a crown. He finds a secret, a ring that helps him vanish, a ring that gets him out of danger, a ring that makes awkward things easier, a ring that asks, at first, almost nothing. And this matters because it reveals another truth. The ring does not always seduce through grandiosity. Sometimes it seduces through comfort, through small advantages, through the pleasure of having one hidden thing that quietly rearranges your relation to the world. Bilbo does not become Gollum overnight. That would be too obvious. Instead, he becomes attached, protective, slightly thinner in spirit around the question of letting it go. The ring with Bilbo behaves less like a tyrant and more like a habit. And habits are often harder to fear precisely because they do not announce themselves as catastrophe. And that is perhaps the most dangerous form of corruption. the one that does not feel like corruption at all. Evil does not always arrive as a catastrophe. Sometimes it arrives as a convenience. But then something extraordinary happens. Bilbo lets it go. Not cleanly, not easily, but he does let it go. And that matters more than people sometimes realize, because it suggests that the ring does not merely overpower in proportion to proximity, it also works in relation to the shape of the soul it meets. And in Bilbo, it meets something stubbornly unheroic and unexpectedly sane. Something small enough not to dream at once of ruling anything. That smallness will matter more than anyone yet understands.
Act 3. The burden of the faithful.
And then the ring comes to Frodo. This is where the story stops being merely fascinating and becomes terrible. Because Frodo does not want domination. He does not crave glory. He does not dream of empire. He wants peace. He wants home. He wants, if possible, not to be chosen for anything at all. So what does the ring do when it cannot easily tempt a person with open ambition? It does something worse. It wears him down. With Frodo, the ring no longer appears mainly as promise. It appears as burden, as weight, as attrition, as the slow transformation of endurance into isolation. It does not need to make Frodo grand. It only needs to make laying the ring down feel impossible. And that may be the most frightening thing Tolkien ever understood about power. The worst corruptions are not always theatrical. They are not always crowns, armies, proclamations, or falls from great height. Sometimes corruption looks like exhaustion. Sometimes it looks like carrying something so long that the self begins to erode around the carrying. The Shire becomes distant, rest becomes distant, trust becomes fragile. Even Sam, the one person who loves him most faithfully, can begin to feel like someone standing outside a pain too private to share. The ring isolates by making suffering feel uniquely yours. It makes surrender feel less like betrayal than relief. And that is why Frodo matters so much. Because in him, we see the ring at its most patient, and in a way, its most terrifying. It does not simply prey on greed, it can slowly break the faithful. That is the deepest horror in the entire story. Not that evil can seduce the ambitious, that it can grind down the good. And in the end, at the very edge of the crack of doom, it almost completes that work.
Act 4. The one thing the ring does not understand.
But before we reach that final moment, there is one more bearer we have to talk about. Sam. Sam carries the ring only briefly, but briefly is enough. The ring does what it always does. It offers scale. It offers greatness. It offers enlargement of the self. Samwise the strong, Samwise the hero, Samwise the gardener of a transformed world. And for an instant, Sam sees it. That matters. Because resistance to the ring is not the absence of temptation. It is not purity in the simplistic sense. It is not that the fantasy fails to appear. It is that Sam refuses to build his identity around the fantasy. He sees the image, and he rejects it. Not because he lacks imagination, not because he lacks desire, but because at the deepest level, he does not want to become that kind of person. His sense of self is too rooted in love, duty, friendship, earth, memory, and home. The ring offers him magnitude. Sam chooses relation. The ring offers him self-expansion. Sam chooses fidelity. And that may be the one thing the ring is least able to understand. Because the ring understands appetite, it understands fear, it understands possession, it understands the will to power. But it does not truly understand smallness freely embraced.
It does not understand a person who would rather remain himself than become immense. That is why Sam is not simply stronger than Frodo. That is much too crude. Frodo carries a burden Sam only touches. What Sam reveals is something else. That there exists one form of life the ring cannot easily translate into its own language. A self that does not want greatness badly enough. A self anchored in love before scale. And that matters, because it prepares us for the ending.
Act 5. The final truth.
At the crack of doom, Frodo fails. That is one of the most important facts in all of Tolkien, and one of the most misunderstood. He does not fail because he was secretly weak. He fails because no one, having carried the ring so far, could simply stand at the place of its making and casually destroy it by an act of pure autonomous strength. That was never the point. The final truth of the ring is not that one person eventually proved holy enough to master it. The final truth is that no one ever truly could. The ring was made to own, and in different ways, it does own everyone who bears it. It owns Isildur through justified claim. It owns Gollum through obsession. It owns Frodo through attrition and final possession. Even when resisted, it wounds. Even when relinquished, it leaves marks. And yet, it is destroyed. Why? Not because domination is finally beaten by a greater domination, not because someone outwills the ring, but because mercy, pity, loyalty, and providence create a world the ring cannot fully calculate. Frodo's mercy toward Gollum does not look like strategy. It looks, to many readers, like dangerous softness. But in Tolkien, mercy is not softness. It is one of the deepest forms of realism, because the world is larger than calculation. And so Gollum, the creature most ruined by the ring, becomes the final instrument of its destruction. The obsession the ring created becomes the means by which it is unmade. Its own logic curls back on itself. That is why the ending is not a simple moral of be strong enough. It is far stranger than that. The ring is not destroyed because someone proves pure enough to conquer it. It is destroyed because the story itself has been shaped by virtues the ring never fully understood. Pity, loyalty, smallness, love that does not seek scale. This is not the story of who owned the ring. It is the story of how the ring tried to own them back. And the final irony is that the thing most designed to dominate the wills of others is brought down in a world where not everything is governed by domination. That is the one thing the ring never learned. Because the One Ring has its own will, but it never needed the same lie twice.
Act 6. The one who was offered the ring and laughed.
And that leaves one question. If the ring always changes its language to fit the bearer, which bearer do you think reveals its true nature most clearly? Is it Isildur, where it enters through a justified claim? Gollum, where possession becomes identity? Bilbo, where corruption begins as comfort? Frodo, where power becomes attrition? Or Sam, where temptation is refused not by greatness, but by humility? Tell me in the comments. And if you want to go even deeper, the next question is even darker. What kind of person could be offered the ring and refuse it almost instinctively? Because Tolkien does give us one, and that answer reveals just as much about power as the ring itself. If you want that next step, stay with me.